and the trees were well enough. Just to say that this is it doesn't, sorry, I'm going to do it.
For planning.
We've only got one manager. They get text sometimes, see how I used to.
I'd like to call the July 8th Borough Council meeting to order. Will the clerk please read the open meeting statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, specifying the time, date, and location by posting a copy of the notice on the municipal building, municipal website, providing a copy of the annual notice scheduled to the official newspaper of the borough, and is filed in the clerk's office.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Manco.
Here.
Councilman Poznanski. Councilman Potter.
Here.
Councilman Zambrana.
Here.
Mayor Murray.
Present.
Borough Attorney Peter Vignolo.
Present.
Borough Administrator Fred Carr.
Present.
Borough Clerk Monica Orlando. Present.
Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence, which will be followed by a salute of flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment portion of our meeting is to allow the public to bring to the council's attention their comments or concerns. The council will respect the public's time by refraining from any comments until the speaker is finished. If it should further be noted that this is a public comment portion of our meeting and not structured as a question and answer, please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm up here in regards to Resolution 2024-214.
Can I have your name and address for the record?
Was it?
Your name and address for the record.
My name is Raymond Jolly, 97 First Street, Fire Chief. All right, we had proposed a statement regarding the resolution for the permission to build the structure for the 1921 American La France. The members of then Engine Company and Hose Company were offered the 1921 La France fire truck back in 1959. Both companies agreed that it was a great idea and housed it at DeHart's garage adjacent to Engine Company to start repairing it and having useful parades and services. Over the next 60 years, the truck was housed in then the fire museum behind Engine Company on South Main Street. Over the course of that time, the truck has been restored and preserved by fundraising and donations. In 2020, when the fire department was set to move into the new firehouse, the 21 was left without a home. And the members at the time figured it without a way to squeeze it into the new firehouse. The hope was to find a permanent location for one of the most notable fire trucks, not only to the fire department, but also to the borough. The truck is currently now sitting behind engine 72 in the largest bay in the new structure. That bay was actually designed for a ladder truck. Members have to put their gear on carefully and move her around the truck. And furthermore, the driver of the fire truck, engine 72, must be aware of not backing into it when they're returning back from a call. The extra room that is going to be gained will go towards more gear lockers and a training section, which is the initial intention for that area. The members formulated a plan to use the funds raised over the years along with the proceeds of the artifacts that were sold off from the museum once it was closed. The structure is completely funded by the members of the Middletown Fire Department Incorporated to preserve our beloved 103-year-old fire truck. And there's some bullet points I'm going to have Deputy Chief Fama read.
Anthony Fama, 75 West Church Street, Deputy Chief.
The 21 is registered and insured. We have a title for the truck proving ownership. The clerk has a copy. An on-site meeting was held back on June 13th. At the meeting was the builder, Glick Construction, the members of the committee, our zoning officer, Marty O'Neill, John Eckert from the electric department, Don Herman from the water utilities, Ralph Jesenowski. We discussed the building and the location and agreed that the placement would work in the proposed area. The building will not require natural gas. The department has requested a meter for electricity once it's been erected. The building is a wood frame structure with no windows for security. It is a 15 by 30 structure with a 10-foot high door. The building color is color-coded, identical to the firehouse with tan vinyl siding and a green metal roof. The building is just big enough to house the antique and some of its spare parts, and the membership appreciates the cooperation of the Mayor and Borough Council in addressing an issue that will have been funded independently with minimal impact to the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Seeing no other comments, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. All right. Next on the agenda, we have the authorization of the municipal obligations. Will the clerk please read the resolution by title?
Resolution 2024-213, authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Middletown in the total amount of $484,455.11.
You have heard the reading of this resolutions. Are there any questions?
I have one. I saw Councilman Zambrana had asked the question earlier today about the bill for sewer for New Brunswick. Were we able to verify as to whether or not that is just a standard portion of our bill, or if this was some sort of makeup for, that they're metering the sewer flow?
They're not, they are metering, but that they're not, our water, our sewer charges, as you know, are based on our water meter use charges. Whatever their meter says going through the sewer, as we've talked about previously, is higher than the water flows incidental to us. It's not the way the contract reads. I don't think we have answered Councilman Zambrana's question to his satisfaction. But Joe Zanga is in Myrtle Beach, and I'll talk to him next Monday.
So are we able to authorize the payment of bills and claims and withhold that one until we get an answer?
I would pay it anyway, because at the end of the day, it's gonna come out in the wash. I mean, the answer to, if we delay it for till the 31st, and perhaps get a better answer, it won't change the number. It'll just change the documentation that the councilman asked accompanying the bill.
Thank you.
But if you want to pull it, pull it.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
No.
Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-214 by title?
Resolution 2024-214, authorizing storage garage placement on borough property, Milltown Fire Department.
You have heard the reading of this resolution. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to pull this one, if possible.
Well, we don't need to pull,
not a
everything's
consent.
getting voted, there's no
Okay.
consent.
So can I just ask my question?
Yep,
So, Ray and Anthony, thank you for that, that detailed explanation, because you answered one of my questions. Is there gonna be a meter there? So there's gonna be a meter. Who actually is gonna be paying the bill?
Can you repeat that question?
Who's actually gonna be paying the electric bill?
The Milltown Fire Department Incorporated.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
That's it.
I have a second.
No, I make a motion this resolution be adopted.
Motion and a
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Potter, seconded by Council President Revelinsky. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-215?
Authorizing hiring senior public safety telecommunicator, Police Department.
Pleasure of council.
I make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. Is there any comments?
I had a question. Is this a new position or is this an old position?
This is a promotion.
It's a
This-
promotion.
Yeah, this is an employee who has reached the next level on their steps.
Yeah. But because it's union, they have to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-216?
Authorizing hiring full-time Recreation Director, Department of Recreation.
What is the pleasure of council?
I make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. Any discussion? No? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Is there any public questions, comments, concerns for open public? No? Okay. Council comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got.
Can we just
two-
close the public portion
Oh.
before we?
Close the public portion of the meeting. Council comments?
Mr. Mayor, I've got two or three things. I stopped in the Borough Hall today, and I was in the tax collector's office, and I saw this beauty. This is called Senior Freeze. And what it does for your taxes is it says if you were of the age of 65 years old on December 31st of 2022, receiving Social Security disability payments on December 31st, 2022, and also on December 31st of 23. Basically, what this does is it allows you to freeze your taxes by going back if you've made less than $163,050 or less in 2023, and your annual income was $150,000 or less in 2022. It allows us to file and go back to freeze your taxes. Essentially, what that means is that you still pay the standard taxes to the Borough of Milltown. What happens then is that the state will send you, the individual, a reimbursement. Once we have verified that, A, you've paid your taxes, and B, you meet the criteria. There's a pretty little blue booklet in there as well. If you meet this criteria, again, senior citizens, age 65 by December 31st of 2022, making less than $150,000 and less than $163,050 in 2023. You can apply for this senior freeze, and I believe it has to be in by October of 1st of 2024. So if you're interested and you feel you apply, please go down and see our tax collector. Secondly, during that little discussion, I found out that all veterans are entitled to a $250 tax credit, which is pretty nice. Again, this comes from the state reimbursing the individual. Again, we have to prove that you've paid your taxes in full, and then our veterans can get a $250 deduction from the state for that money. Actually, the money comes to the Borough of Milltown, but then it goes to your tax bill. So terrific, more ways to support our seniors and our veterans. And lastly, actually, I got two more things. A resident had reached out to me the other day and provided me with a copy of Jersey City's ordinance on vacant lots and abandoned lots. I've gone through this. I sent a copy over to our business administrator, Mr. Carr, for any council member who's interested in looking at it. I've made a couple notes on here, but basically what it does is it requires any property owner to pay us for a vacant lot registration. It also requires them to maintain it, and then renewals, the cost goes up to, in Jersey City, I think it's $1,000 the first year, $2,000 the next, and then $3,000 every consecutive year after that for having a vacant lot. I believe it would be in the council's best interest to request this from Mr. Carr, take a look at it. My initial thoughts are that a vacant lot should not be considered one that was previously undeveloped. In other words, if we've got a section of woods somewhere in town that is owned privately, it probably shouldn't go under the vacant lot statute. But rather, for example, I don't know, a house on Main Street that blew up years ago and we've got an ugly foundation sitting in the middle of town. But I'd like to introduce a similar ordinance at our July 31st meeting. So if everyone could take a look, and then Mr. Vignola might be able to modify it accordingly to our recommendations.
Fred, can you send that to all of us? Thank you.
And last but not least, continuing our work on the water sewer ordinances, I spoke with our attorney, Mr. Vignola, today to ask for legality and language on the first of a couple items to incorporate into a revised ordinance. The first being what I'm referring to as a bill as if clause. Again, we talked about during the water rate increase that we've got 2,604 meters, water meters in town, but we have far more electric meters in town. One of those things would be capturing folks who have a two-family unit or multiple dwelling units, and the bill as if clause, for convenience of understanding, would be billing someone as if they had 2 meters or multiple meters for those dwellings to make sure that everyone's paying their share fare for water connection. The second item was language regarding an automatic increase within our rates based on an increase from our supplier. So in other words, if we adopt a new agreement with New Brunswick that says we're going up 3.5% every year, automatically the rates should go up 3.5% that year as well, taking that decision out of the council's hand and ensuring the long-term planning and financial success of our water utility. And that's all I've got.
Yes, yeah, I'll go. Oh, yeah, Rich, you also forgot to say that disabled veterans, totally disabled veterans are municipal tax exempt also.
That's correct, but unfortunately, and I wish some state legislators would get on this, is that the totally disabled veterans who are tax exempt, there is no compensation back to the Borough of Milltown for those property taxes. In these other scenarios that I explained, the taxes are still paid to the borough, but unfortunately with our fully disabled residents, the federal government doesn't give us money back for those properties, when quite frankly, I think they should.
And I saw, Peter, that Saraville recently passed an ordinance on the flag ordinance about the 4 flags that we have. Is it possible we could copy that and bring it to the council at the next meeting?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I could find it and see what we have. I don't know specifically what it does or doesn't do. And I guess I would need to distribute it to everybody and make sure you guys are all on the same page and it was okay. I mean, I can draft whatever you like, but as indicated previously, if we get some consensus so that we know it's, got legs to it, and we'll go somewhere.
And I'd just like to thank our firemen who do tireless work and are all volunteers for the Borough of Milton. I'd just like to say thank you again.
Here, here.
Okay. I have 2 items. First, I'd like to thank Councilman Potter and his crew of dedicated, loyal, patriotic volunteers who once again put on the best parade in New Jersey and also helped facilitate our outstanding fireworks. To all those who gave their valuable time, thank you. The reason for the festivities was the celebration of our nation's founding, Independence Day, July 4th, 1776. We have survived and thrived. In 2026, we'll be celebrating 250 years of freedom. And also, what I have is a rebuttal. Someone had read an email that I had written last week, and I'm going to read it in the spirit that I wrote it. There is one flag that unites us all as Americans. It has been fought for and died for to keep this country and other countries free from tyranny and hatred. I respect all colors, creeds, religions, and sexuality. But as I represent all people in Milltown, one flag has united us all. Others divide us. How many more flags will we have to put up to placate other groups? Respectfully, Councilman Poznanski, which is me. What I also have is one flag, one land, one heart, one hand, one nation evermore. It's from Oliver Wendell Holmes. That's it from me.
So I'd like to ask for support for an ordinance, and this is an ordinance to amend the water and sewer rates to 10/1/24 for a quarter of the increase that was included in the ordinances 1540 and 1541. And my reason for this is to make sure that there's no potential, or to avoid the potential for multiple quarters to be billed to close the gap in 2024. So I make a motion. I don't know if I can do that here, or if we can kick this down to July 31st meeting.
Essentially, it's another question of, I mean, I can draft any ordinance you guys would like to see, but if you guys, you know, if you want to see if there's a strong pull for support for that, you know.
I would second that get drafted.
Okay.
I think it's completely foolish to do so without the advice of our CFO, who has already indicated that next year, the $350,000 is not going to be enough, because we did reuse some additional surplus, as he said, and some leftover grant money in order to try and step this burden of the results of the water sewer budget out next year. So until we hear that, and again, we're looking to,
It does give us time,
excuse
though,
me, I'm
to have a
speaking.
conversation about it.
And again, all we have to do is work diligently and adopt new rates before the October meeting, and there's no need to repeal anything or change it to an increase that is quarterly.
But is that gonna be in the ordinance? Because you're saying October, but nowhere in that ordinance says October the rate.
No, that's called working together
But-
towards a solution.
But if it's in the ordinance, then it will get passed.
Forces us.
It forces us.
Forces you
And
to
for the
work
resident,
together.
and excuse me, now I'm speaking. So it forces us to keep our residents, you know, so they're not raising the rates. It's keeping us responsible, and it's gonna bring them down. Or bring them to a rate there, it's reasonable and that we don't have to raise them. So that's what we wanna do. That's all we're asking. We're not denying it, we're just asking that there's a timetable where we can make sure we get the right rates in there.
With that said, my concern about that is that if it were passed, and then anything that happens, anything that doesn't pass, you run into the same issue that we ran into this year, is that a couple of changes happen and nothing gets on the board, and suddenly you're left with 3/4 to make up.
But right now, you're putting in a rate that's gonna stay there until we bring it down. And there's nowhere in there where it's indicated we are gonna bring it down. And I've always heard that it's the council's responsibility, but how about next year, there's a different council, and it doesn't come down?
Yep.
It's keeping us responsible and accountable. That's all we're asking.
In the same respect, I kind of see where
Microphone.
us not having that, in that same respect, I kind of see that not having that also forces us to be responsible. Because we can't let that go on. That wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Right, but
So
if
it
it's
more
not,
puts more pressure on us, really,
Actually,
to facilitate
actually,
the
it puts more
change.
pressure on
it
us.
puts
if
less
there's-
pressure,
it
because
puts
there's
less-
nothing there.
Correct.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing.
There's no wall.
Yeah.
So you're proposing that we amend an ordinance over the course of 2 meetings, at which the following meeting we would be introducing a new ordinance, which would include the
No,
rates
so
for
you
2024,
have-
as well as other changes,
So
which is foolish.
October, November, December, if I have this right, October, November, December is probably gonna be billed in January, right? So
Yes.
we have a little bit more time than that. It's not like 2 meetings. There's many more meetings than that.
If you
You gotta
wait,
strike the rate, you
if
gotta
you-
strike the rate October 1st, so.
No,
Yeah.
I understand that,
Okay.
I understand that, I understand that.
If you wait until December to set the rates for 2025, you'll miss a quarter. So you have to strike those rates
I'm
by
just asking-
October 1st, which means introduction the first meeting in September and adoption in the second meeting in September, which means you have 2 months left, July and August, to work on what the rates should be. And it's foolish to waste time
So again, just looking
introducing
for
and amending
support.
an ordinance that's
Looking for
already been
support.
adopted.
Looking for support. Who wants to do that? Who doesn't want to do that? That's
I'm a
what
no.
this is about.
So what you're saying, Phil, is you're going to adjust the rates for the 2023 increase and the 2024 increase?
2023?
24,
No.
What's that?
23?
Not 20.
Yeah, that was on that sheet. They said rates went up in 23, that guy.
No, we're talking about the minimums that went up at the last council.
Right, but the
July
rate
1st.
of the water itself should have gone up because it went up 3% this year.
But,
3.5,
so
I think it
I
was.
did ask, and I didn't get an answer, like, did anybody look at any sort of cost reductions? But nothing. Have we looked at any cost reductions?
What cost reductions did you see last year as the chair of the finance committee?
I didn't have to look at any cost reductions because.
Because you
we had
used
to look at-
$350,000 of government handout to
Exactly,
balance a budget that you knew was
But-
non-recurring revenue.
But
Okay.
does that mean that, you know, we didn't have that as Plan B? Hey, if we
So
knew we were
what-
gonna increase these things 3 to 5%, or we we're gonna do a surcharge, right? Does that mean that we look at the makeup of the personnel or anything that's cost-related to water and sewer? That's
So-
what I'm talking about.
So again, what were your plans last year?
Look at everything.
Look at everything.
Look at
Did you
everything.
actually come up with anything when you
Personnel.
saw this glooming you in the face?
Personnel, everything.
Did you come up with any of those solutions at that time?
Yeah.
And what were they?
Possibilities of terminations or layoffs, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're gonna
Not-
reduce the
not where you
number of
wanna go.
people in our water department when we only have 3 to begin with.
You have 4 people in there.
I thought that
Foolish.
part of the process or part of the idea was that we were attempting to save money by doing repairs and maintenance
Internally,
in-house.
yes.
And then if we're losing those people, then when things do happen,
We're not
well,
talking about those people. I'm not saying getting rid of the people that we just hired not too long ago, right? Who, for years, we didn't have people with that kind of experience or background. I'm not talking about those people.
We're not talking about any specific people.
Yeah, we're not talking about
To
any
be utterly
specific.
frank, we're
Okay.
talking
We're not talking about
about
any
a
specific people.
very, very vague notion of
Yep.
examining something.
Okay.
So, it's
gotcha.
That's all.
otherwise.
We're conceptual at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Any more comments?
So what, there was a motion and a second.
I can draft it and it can be on the agenda and
31st?
council can do whatever it wants with it.
We don't need it, do we need an actual vote for that, or just?
No, I can,
Yeah.
I just look for a direction when I'm doing stuff, so I have some idea of why I'm doing it.
I don't
Before we
know.
ask, I think we should probably take a straw poll now of the council, that before we ask our borough attorney, whose fee is his fee, but it's hourly, before we ask him to revise an ordinance that would just get overturned in a September introduction of new rates for 2025, is it worth spending the borough's money? I am a no on that.
Well, I disagree, because I want more time to think about it.
And this is why we look for consensus.
I agree, Phil, we should look at that and see if we can trim some expenses down, because I read on the newspaper, people showed me on the phone, my name's in the paper, and they're gonna look for $600,000 next year. And that's the first I heard of the 600,000. I don't know why the newspaper knows before me, but that's another question.
It was stated by our CFO at the rate ordinance introduction. When we were sitting here, he said we still used surplus and we still used some extra grant money so that it wasn't such a significant impact. Right now, it's up $150. If we didn't have the surplus and we didn't have that extra grant money, it would be even more. He's projecting out that next year, because we don't have the 350 and because we wouldn't have the other grant money and we don't have the surplus, it would be 600,000. So we need to pay attention when our professionals speak.
I believe he said 500,000. Now I read 500 and 600 in the newspaper today, which is tomorrow really, but online. So that's a big problem. And maybe, like Phil said, we should look at expenses and start trimming them.
We also had a discussion with a private water company the other day and evaluated what those costs would be, how much revenue we could get. One of the things is doing a rate, not a rate study, but a valuation of what our system is worth, which would be around $10,000 for an engineering study. And that would give us an idea of what a private utility would be willing to pay the Borough of Milltown to purchase our water and sewer departments. Now, with that, you have to consider that we are hindered geographically. Middlesex Water Company supplies East Brunswick with their water. New Brunswick provides Milltown with our water. New Jersey American has a plant on Canal Road in North Brunswick that supplies North Brunswick with their water. So you have three options there. New Brunswick, which would be us still in the water business and have to deal with the rate increases and maintaining the system. Striking a deal with Middlesex Water Company because they provide East Brunswick and we can open up the interconnect and feed Milltown, or New Jersey American.
Sounds
Those are
like
the
a great
chances-
idea.
Those are the opportunities we're looking at.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, and it's gonna cost $10,000 for a study. We can bring them in. That's another thing we discussed recently. They were gonna get us some more information and put together a more complete presentation on the successes they've had in neighboring communities. And also, we wanna share that with the rest of council so we can figure out maybe inviting in some of the politicians from those neighboring communities and ask what was their decision-making paradigm for the pros and cons, and they put it to public vote, and overwhelmingly, the public voted yes. So, certainly willing to do that, just needs a little bit more digging.
But will that void our water agreement with New Brunswick and then increase our sewer fees?
It depends on whether or not any of these companies would take both our water and sewer, or just our water. So we were hoping to get them in for September for a council meeting for a presentation for the public. But I think at that point, it's still too late to put anything on the books for the public, or for the general election in November.
It would be.
But it's a good opportunity to decide whether or not we want to spend $10,000 to do a study and see what our system really needs, and what it's worth, and what our operating costs are.
Not exactly in the same, but in this, regarding the same type of matter. I know we have these, those meters that we have yet to install, that we don't really have a plan or a budget in place to install, and there's a 10-year lifespan on the batteries. I guess we are 3 years in on that. I would think that it would be a worthy trade if we could try and sell off those units perhaps, and use that funding to promote something, maybe the research you're talking about, because we need a long-term. As much as I respect what you're saying about the October, and I'm just, these short-term things, it just becomes, you know, I would just want to see something fixed correctly for Milltown, and an evaluation of what it best serves our town over the next 10, 20, whatever years. If we can invest in that, if we have an asset that is sitting, that we can liquidate and maybe use the money from that to facilitate a greater change, I think that's the best way our town will be served.
Councilman, if I may, those 550 meters that are sitting up in Public Works were purchased with a grant from the state of New Jersey. If we turn them back in, we have to turn the money back in. It is not our money. Good idea, but there's a couple of technical flaws that we can't get into, we don't want to get into now to bore everybody about water meters and batteries and things like that. But the short answer is those were bought with a $750,000 grant that we utilized for water main improvements. Some remaining money that was left, we bought those. We started to move forward. It stopped last year, right about the beginning of the year. We've had a conversation. We need about $82K to install those meters. We don't have $82K. Okay. If you want to go off and do the deep end, go all the way, you need about $1.5 million, give or take $1, to fix the rest of the meters in the town, and we're currently working that also. But it's not as easy as installing a meter as just walking in, popping like an electric meter on the side of your house. We pop the old meter off, stick the new meter in. When you walk into a house and that water meter is bonded, if you will, to the galvanized pipe or the lead pipe or the very, very old pipe that's in there, and you start snapping off the pipe, then guess, it costs a little more fixing the whole mess.
Obviously,
A lot of
it's part
times,
a broader.
Yeah.
it's a broader mess.
Broader
It's not a mess.
conversation, yeah.
1.5 million is a good start.
Yeah.
Could be more, but the real question is, as you start, it's a slippery slope. Councilman, we've had these conversations since I've come in the door. We need to take some kind of actions, to include the lead pipes, the memo.
Yep.
Okay? lots of things going on with the meters, other than just what do we do with the meters up in the hill in the box?
In trying to do anything with that, I understand too, part of it's been expressed to me is going into someone's house or trying to schedule it, whatever's in front of the meter, whatever that water closet in the basement is, and getting in there and schedule is tough. Is there, even without spending money, but trying to figure out maybe if we could use those for, I heard from what my comprehension of this was, the meter readings would be cheaper in the long run because of these meters. Can we try and facilitate doing that with businesses, which are probably a little more, I don't know, easier to get to?
It's, well, it's a good idea, Councilman, but, you know, as was put to me earlier, we don't have the bandwidth to do it because we don't have the personnel to go around and install 500 meters. Now, the price we got from a vendor was $82,000 to install the 500 meters. As our business administrator alluded to earlier, I received an email stating that the cost to replace all the water meters in town, including installation, was $1.4 million. You throw 10% on there for incidental additional costs, you're looking at $1.54 million. Simple interest at 20%. You can bond these for 10 years. It's not smart to go beyond 10 years bonding, but what it would come out to is around $70 per year for the 2,604 currently metered customers, and that would be over the course of 10 years. So you're looking at $70 a year, or $18-ish per quarter, increased in the base rate to pay for those meters. So we're talking about, on one hand, we want to lower it and decrease what the base rate is, but if you want to install the smart meters, it's going to go up $18 or $79 for the year, so $18 quarterly. So again, before we go revising an ordinance and changing things around, we need to talk to our financial people and find out what are the things that we want to put in there and make sure that we have budgeted for next year. That is our fiduciary responsibility to the residents of this town.
So Peter, can you talk to our professionals and we figure out the rates to put in for the next ordinance? Because it sounds like Councilman Zambrano, myself, Councilman Collins, and Councilman Prosnansky want to see.
I can draft that ordinance, and just for the record, part of my retainer is to draft ordinances, so there won't be, it's not an hourly rate item, so I can draft it, and if it doesn't go anywhere, then it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
But I can prepare that for next meeting, and the council can take whatever action it wants to do with that.
I'm glad to know that the drafting of ordinances is included in your retainer. That's a nice thing, thank you.
We should have a long ordinance.
Yeah, is there anything else we can throw in that retainer? A couple of teeth, a couple of...
Listen, we can throw in whatever you want, and we go with it.
Peter, sorry, can I just ask a quick question? With
Yes,
this
Monica.
vacant property one that you're drafting,
What's that?
with the vacant property ordinance that they're asking you to draft, are we going to have a discussion about who's going to be responsible for taking in the money, who's going to be responsible for? Is that
I
going to
don't
be in?
even know what that ordinance looks like yet, so other than a
So,
brief...
Council President, is that within the ordinance, who's responsible for taking in the money, who's responsible for
It is
enforcing
not
this? Which
in-
department? 'Cause-
In Jersey City's ordinance, they had crossed out a couple of things. They have a housing authority. I would think that it would probably land more on our zoning officer, and then hopefully with increased revenue, we're also able to build that department and further generate more code enforcement in the borough. But unfortunately, with a tight budget as we are, because there's, you know, things not budgeted for in previous years, there's little room to add personnel.
No, I understand that, but is it going to be in the ordinance who's going to be responsible for all this, who's going to be responsible for
It would
taking the money?
probably, I'm assuming it would probably be the borough's designee
Okay.
in the ordinance.
For the record, all members of council and Peter have gotten a copy of the vacant ordinance. It's probably sitting in your email somewhere, along with the Saryville flag ordinance, sitting somewhere in your email.
Thanks.
I will add one more thing since we're on the discussion of meters. When I was talking to the tax collector today, it was brought to my attention that, you know, we are on borrowed time with our electric meters. And when you think about that, we bill 1/3 of the town for water every month, and we bill 3/3 of the town for electric every month, that's 4/3. So getting rid of the water meter reading manually saves us 25% of our meter reading time. Getting rid of the electric meters reading them manual saves us 75% of our meter reading time. And currently, the program that we use for processing the electric meters is outdated, and I believe it's no longer available for update. So we are on borrowed time with that one, and it would probably behoove us to do both electric and water around the same time. And judging by $1.5 million for the water, I would say we're probably in the same ballpark. I remember in 2018, I had done a presentation before the governing body on it would cost about $10 per month per meter. That would pay for all the meters within about 4 years, and that would do our electric and water meters. Now, those are obviously old numbers at this point, but nothing's free. So one way or another, it goes up. But one of the best things about both water and electric doing the meters this way is those smart meters record every hour what the usage is. So you'd be able to look back and say, New Brunswick bills us, they look at the 28th of every month at midnight, and they look at the following month, the 28th at midnight, and say, this is how many gallons you used. We could then look at all the values from that time period on what we bill and say, okay, we're billing our residents for 1.5 million gallons or 10 million gallons, and New Brunswick's saying we did 11 million gallons. Well, we're missing 1 million gallons of water somewhere. Did we have a fire? Did we flush hydrants? Do we have leaks within our system? That is the beauty of water accountability. And when you're not accounting for that, I believe last year when we looked at the, not last year, but when we were looking at the ordinance this year and how much that increase was, we billed out, I think, 140 million gallons of water to the Borough of Middletown, and New Brunswick billed us for 160 million gallons. So somewhere we used 20 million gallons of water and didn't bill for it. Whether it's here at Borough Hall and we don't have a meter on here, or we don't read it, whether it's at the pool or filling the pool, or just not having any data for when we're flushing hydrants, 20 million gallons is a lot of water to not bill for or not even know where it's going. Again, this all goes to accountability. If we want to be in the water business, you got to run it like a business, and running a business means knowing the numbers. And you can't run the numbers when you only look at something every 3 months.
Rich, I want to tap your engineering experience. How hard is it to change the batteries on those water meters?
It's the top. Typically, it's just the top.
Just
You pop
pop
it
the
off,
top, but-
put a new one in, and you're done. But again, you're going to have to get access to the homes.
Right, okay.
Which, if you guys want, I'll talk about some of the other items that proposed. Peter, I didn't want to overwhelm you within 2 weeks. I'm hoping we can chip away at these. The borough owning the service from the main to the curb stop, and while a lot of people think this would be a bad idea and the borough would incur costs, number one, when a service breaks under a roadway, we go out and fix it anyway, because we don't know if it's the main or it's the service. So we're doing the work, and then we're trying to chase down residents to pay us back. Additionally, what that does is it gives us ownership of the curb stop. That brings us to our next one, the right to shut off or the right to access. Meaning, you're giving us estimated bills, we've asked you repeatedly, we want to come in and change your meter, and you say, no, I'm not doing it, or you just don't respond. Well, we need language in our ordinance that allows us to shut off water service for lack of payment or non-response. Also, the ability to go in and change a meter. I mean, if we're going to spend $1.5 million to bring a company in to go around and change meters, it'd be nice to know that we have the legal authority to change those meters. So there again, I know we've run into this on some emergency calls. There was a house down the street from me that was abandoned. The water was left on, and sure enough, one winter the pipes broke and the basement flooded and water came pouring out. I don't know whoever paid that, but someone had to. We've also had situations where water service is broken, and because the people didn't want to pay to fix it themselves, the water just kept running. Why? Because we can't shut it off. This happened at a beloved pool in town. Fifth item, required replacement. We've got memos here saying that galvanized is not okay, lead is not okay, and the only thing you can use is copper. We've got a copper rule that came down from the state. They're increasing the threshold, or I'm sorry, decreasing the threshold by which that if you have a sample of water that comes back with copper in it, you might have to provide more chemicals in the water in order to reduce any draw of copper that comes through your pipes. Many towns are also utilizing HDPE, so we should change what materials are allowed to be utilized for a water service. but also require residents to replace them. The state has said, and if you were paying attention at the last council meeting, our engineer had stated that right now, the state doesn't care who pays for it, but one way or the other, you gotta do it. I would propose that what we do is offer that when we have a contractor in town doing these, the resident can pay the contractor to do it, or we will do it and bill the resident for that, and if we have to put it on their taxes and they pay it off over years, then so be it. But the galvanized services and the lead services have to go. How do we find out where the lead services are and the galvanized services? Get into every home and start replacing meters. Having someone go in their basement and scratch at the pipe with a penny to see if it matches copper, galvanized, or lead, we've seen the results of those surveys. Number 6, I think, would be the benefit for all the residents is the elimination of the tier system. Right now, we have an imbalance where people who get billed for the 3 hottest months of the year exceed the minimum 7,500 gallons, and they pay more per gallon for that. Now, New Brunswick does not charge us more per gallon for how much we use. They just charge us a flat fee. So we should be looking at that in our rate structure to say no more tiers. You have your minimum amount, and every gallon past that is the flat dollars per gallon fee. Same thing with sewer. Number 7 would be the rates themselves. Again, after all this other stuff, and we look at the cost of replacing lead services, we look at the cost of replacing the meters themselves, determining what those rates are. So again, and I'm sorry if it sounds harsh, but it seems foolish to look at the rates again, introduce an ordinance, adopt it, only to have it repealed a month later with new rates. Let our professionals, our CFO, do his job, look at those costs and say, this is what you should be budgeting for rates next year. I also have 3 other ones. I didn't write them down on my pretty blue paper here, but I do have a few other ones, and this goes for both water and sewer. We have to make sure that they're one and the same, because right now the way it is we're tied together. Every gallon we buy from New Brunswick, they charge us for a gallon of sewer.
I do think that this is, as this discussion tells me, this is a war fought on so many fronts that I hate to do a short-term, let's do this because it's, seems to make people feel better. It just seems like the overhaul is the end game. And I don't know, but we can look at it.
See, the problem I have was if the town takes control from the main and the street to the residents, there's 2 shut-off valves, and what happens when they go bad? We have to pay for that too?
Well, from the main to the curb stop, you have the valve that's actually on the main, that's called your corporation. If that goes bad,
No, there's one, a shut-off in the sidewalk, some of them have.
that would be your curb stop.
That's your curb stop.
That's your curb
But
stop.
you also have one inside right before the meter.
That's the resident. So what we're saying, or what I'm saying is that the curb stop itself, the one that is typically in the grass area between the sidewalk and the curb, or some people have it on their sidewalk itself, that valve shuts off your water service. If we can't operate it, that's a problem for us. In general, that's a problem. But it's also our means to shut something off. If there's a water leak in a house and you've got a live electric and you don't pop the meter first, you run the risks. So you need to be able to shut that water off for a bunch of reasons. So we should own that valve. And most of these towns, when they're doing their lead service line replacements and they're going through, they are installing new curb stops, and the valve system itself, which is that little thing that comes up, it's got the 2 holes on the top, it looks like a circle.
You trip over it all the time.
People trip over it all the time, but again, that's a maintenance thing, and right now, we leave it up to the residents, and I get calls from people saying, look, I trip over these. Well, okay, we can either go after the residents, or we can own it ourselves and make sure that they're maintained. And they should be maintained. We should be able to turn off service to a home, especially if it's an abandoned home or someone's not paying their bill, or they're not allowing us to go in and install a meter that reads accurately, because the old meters turn slow. They're mechanical meters. They turn slow. They don't capture every gallon. So if you've got a new meter, you're paying for every gallon, or relatively close. Old meters that we're not replacing, those people could be getting at low flow times free water that you and I guess I should look at the camera, that you and I have to pay for, because it goes into additional costs of lost revenue that we still have to pay. So it's important that everyone has an updated meter. That's how we make sure everyone's paying their fair share for what they use. And the other valve, yes, there's one inside the house that's right before the meter. That would remain the homeowner's responsibility, but there is a valve on the main itself. That's called your corporation. Typically, when you have a valve, a service that breaks in the roadway, it's because the corporation has popped off the main. Simple solution, they put a valve, it's a saddle that goes on top of the main, there's a valve on top of that, and you reconnect the service.
Okay,
Good?
all right. On a brighter note, we had an amazing July 4th in Milltown. Special thanks goes out to our DPW, utilities, police, fire and rescue, our borough clerk's office, our sponsors, participants, residents, spectators, vendors, and our volunteers for all of their efforts in making the day a success. However, I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to our 4th of July committee for their hard work and dedication, and to our families for their patience and understanding to make this day a great one and one to remember. I always say it takes a village to put this event on, and I would like to call out the names of our committee members. They are Russ Einbinder, Neil Murata, Mike Finch, Denise Finch, Debbie Miller, Charlie Miller, Russ Tangen, John McNamara, Terry Walsh, Laura Leo, Jason Kahn, Melissa Elmeyer, Rob and Sean Schaffhauser, Lacey Earl, Jackie Young, Rich Revelinsky, Garrett Conger, Ben Freed, Ray Garlick Jr., and our newest member, Christine Potter. So it's gonna go great next year. Finally, Mr. Mayor and my fellow council members, thank you once again for allowing us to put on this event, and we are already in the planning stages for next year, which is our 100th anniversary. Thank you.
I think we should give Dave a round of applause and the 4th of July.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to close the council comments. Now is my comments. I only have 3 quick things. Dave actually mentioned a lot of it, so I would just like to really thank the committee for the festivities and the fireworks for the day. You guys did a wonderful job. I would also like to congratulate the Milltown 12U who won their district game this weekend, so congratulations. And the county will be coming in on starting July 17th to do the milling and paving from Riva Avenue to Garber Ave. It's actually has, milling is gonna be on the 18th, paving is gonna be the 25th and 26th, and the striping will be on July 29th. So that's from Riva Avenue to Garber Avenue. So there will be some delays and detours around that. It will be posted on Milltown Borough website and on the board. And I just thank everyone for their patience with the Main Street, South Main Street, North Main Street paving that occurred. And Crisdale did a wonderful job, and the county's gonna do their piece of it on July. So I wanna thank everyone for that. I would like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank you for a smooth parade for that road. Thank you. And I second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.